You are valued and everything you do just by being still. You were born leaders. Ever since we were kids, we were already positioned in leadership roles. And we don't know it, unfortunately, but you were born leaders, and it's all just for you to believe in yourself.
Hello and welcome to the Ambitious Women of Color podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Lynn Rojas. In this episode, we're talking about something most people don't realize. The burnout you're experiencing might not just be from your workload, it might be from unprocessed trauma living in your body. My guest is Shena Monroe, a licensed clinical social worker and trauma therapist who specializes in somatic healing. Sheena helps high-achieving women reconnect with their bodies to process trauma that talk therapy alone can't reach. We talk about big T, little t trauma, how unprocessed trauma shows up in the workplace for women of color, why your body keeps to score, and how nervous system regulations builds confidence to stillness. And we're closing with something special, a guided breathwork and sound bath so you can experience somatic healing for yourself. And if you've been trying to think your way out of burnout, this episode will show you why it's not working. Let's dive in. Hello, Sheena. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And you look so fabulous. I was saying that earlier when we hopped on the call. I'm like, oh my God, you look so fabulous. And it's like perfect, calming, and I love it. I love all the vibe. So
Thank you.
before we dive in, I would love to start with our podcast signature question. What's one thing that you refuse to sacrifice for your career?
My time. And I understand everyone talks about that, that's the thing you have to sacrifice to build a career, but that's how you tap into your creative side by actually protecting your time, taking time to be still, taking time to give back to yourself and pour into yourself, because that's where the creativity actually flows.
Yeah, yeah. And like your time and energy are so precious. And I feel like so many take it for granted. Like they don't realize it's not just time and energy. It is like really sipping through, like you said, your creativity. What if in that time that you took for yourself or to recharge, that is when like your best ideas came or where you thought of the next step that you needed to take. And it's just your time and energy. It's like gold and you should definitely not sacrifice it for anything. So I love that. All right. So I would love for people to get to know you a little bit better. So I know you're a trauma therapist and you specialize in somatic work and you help people reconnect with their bodies. But you also have your own story of being like laid off and undervalued. And that's what became the catalyst for you starting your own practice. So I would like to, start there because I feel like a lot of the listeners are carrying a lot of trauma they don't recognize as trauma, like workplace stress or being undervalued or burnt out. And they're thinking that just thinking their way out of it is how they're going to get out of it without realizing that it's in their body and that your body is holding a lot of that. So I guess that's like two things. Like, how do these two things connect for you? And how has your own experience of burnout and being undervalued helped you kind of choose like how you are going to be helping women heal their trauma?
So before I got licensed, I am a social worker. Now I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So I started off working in various jobs positions that social worker work at. For example, in the psychiatric department, working for children and family services under other therapists. My last position, I was working in utilization, working from home. And as much as I love that position, I wanted to, of course, get licensed and work for myself in private practice. But instead of doing what I actually wanted to do, I was busy trying to prove myself to my director and the CEO of the company that I was fit to be supervisor. I was doing everything, I was doing extra work and beyond to prove myself. Even the CEO would even ask me questions about hiring someone. And I thought, oh, I was going to definitely be a shoo-in once the supervisor leaves, because the supervisor left and she went on maternity leave. So I thought it was going to be me. Instead, he gave it to someone else who did not even do as much work as me. And she didn't even have the same credentials
Hmm.
or equal value. And I felt I felt distraught. I felt undervalued. All the work I did, all the effort I put in, seemed unnoticed. And then I thought to myself, next, I was going to at least ask for a raise because I'm putting in all this work.
Mm-hmm.
It took me, I'm not even going to lie, it took me a year to ask for this raise. I didn't feel I was even worthy. And that's how we all feel sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
When you are scared to ask for that raise, you actually are telling yourself, and you have to admit it, you're telling yourself that you are unworthy. And that's not what we should be telling ourselves. So when I finally muscled up the courage to ask for this raise, within the week I was laid off due to, they would say,
Mm-hmm.
budget cuts. And I told myself, nope, this can't be true. This can't be true. So I started off working in other places like another utilization job and working for the school board. Once I realized this was not working for me and sought out for my license and of course passed my test. Full circle, that same job position called me back and they were asking for me to be the supervisor because the person that they put over me is now leaving the company.
Of
And
course. I mean,
right,
it wasn't
right,
the right fit.
exactly. And you know what's so funny? I knew something was, I knew they were going to come back to me because they were stalking my LinkedIn, my TikTok. Like I can see someone who
They're like,
worked
oh,
there.
she's doing some things.
Yes, yes, yes. And I realized that that was the test. Once I grew the confidence in myself and I saw the value, people will circle back around. However, it's up to me to remind myself who I was. Do I want to go back to an environment that was no longer serving me, or do I want to push forward, even if it's scary, and make those changes within myself?
Wow. That was like a lot, and just like learning from what you were experiencing. And I feel like, and you see this probably with your clients as well, but so
Yes.
many of us, so many women of color, the way that we're taught of how do you show that you are ready for the leadership position, right? You think, oh, I need to put in more hours. I need to do all of the things. I need to show I'm indispensable. If you're like, if they think that they need me so bad that I'm the one that could do everything, that I could put off all the fires, then of course, like you said it yourself, I'll be a shoo-in. But as what you saw, that's not what they're looking for when they are deciding of who is going to be. In reality, what they want is who is going to be the leader. And not that you weren't showcasing that, but you were so worried proving yourself because like you said at the end, you were feeling unworthy. And that's so many of us feel that way. And that is what stops us from asking for more when like you worked so hard, you definitely deserve to be paid more, but you felt that you were not worthy of asking for more. And that took you a year. And then finally, when you did, that's around the time you got laid off. All in all is just teaching us that all of the things that we were taught or how we believe is how we're going to be growing and how we're going to be valued is really not what's helping us. That's only burning us out. It is exhausting us. And it is also making us like question ourselves and think that our worth is depending on the productivity or how much, you're doing for them. When in fact, it is like you said, when you decided to go all in on yourself and believe in yourself and trust yourself. And now they're seeing that. And now they're seeing the qualities of a leader there. They're seeing like, we want this person because, we know that she could do the work because she was doing the work. And now we know that she could lead. But now you're like, oh, no, thank you. I have my own, private practice. And I'm sure like it's a huge weight off your shoulder because now you are able to, handle your business and do like the way that you approach your coaching practice, the way that you want it. And it's all yours. And you did that because you trusted in yourself. And I just love how that worked out for you. And I think it's just funny how it turns out when they're coming back to you and it just shows you like you just needed to bet on you and trust you.
Yes, yes, that's all I needed to do. And all I kept thinking about is the things we faced growing up, the things that were told to us by our parents that we didn't know that could hinder us. For example,
Hmm.
statements in the women of color population, be seen and not heard. That statement right there, be seen, is produce in productivity.
Hmm.
Okay, so the way we are seen is what we do and how much effort we put into what it is that we do. And not being heard, that is telling us that our voice doesn't matter. We don't even realize, unfortunately, our parents don't even realize how much effect that has on us by telling us that our words are not valued. We're valued by being
Yes.
productive.
Yeah, that's exactly, like in my culture as well. It's like keeping your head down, doing the
Yes,
work. Let them see that you are the first one in, the last one out, the hardest worker there. And then not heard. And thinking about it, like I don't think that they meant any harm, but if we look at our parents' upbringing and their experience, or just like what they had to navigate and struggle, for them not being heard meant keeping them safe. So
yes,
they have the best intentions, but then those things impact us, right? So that we are in a society where we have more opportunities than for a lot of us, our parents had. So in climbing those roles and getting into spaces that they never imagined being in, but if now we're carrying those same stories and following that same advice is just going to keep us systemically where they want us to be, like in the bottom and not the leaders. So, like, yes, and getting to the top is a lot of unlearning. And that's like something I've had to do. And I know that that's something you've had to do. And a lot of us have to do is unlearning those stories, those narratives, those limiting beliefs that, like, again, they didn't mean any harm in teaching us these things because maybe it was needed for them for survival, but they're the things that are keeping us from moving forward and from growing, especially in positions of power and leadership roles where we need to be heard. We need to be heard as thought leaders. We need to be heard as, like, okay, this person has a vision. This person is going to take this team or this department or this company to the next level. And if you don't think that your voice is valuable, you're not going to speak up. You're not going to say something when you disagree. You're not going to say something when you think there's a better approach. So then the person that is vocal and is visible are the ones that get the roles, not the ones that are quiet.
right, exactly. Another thing that comes to mind that I had to learn was the word make haste. Every family has their own statement, but that statement, make haste, it is like, oh, you're value when you're quick. If you're moving too slow, or hurry up. If you're moving too slow, you're not being of service or valued in your family. So building my private practice, I had to learn it's okay to take my time. It's okay to be still. I had to learn that in that moment, and that's what I teach my clients as well, is having them, reconnecting them to the body and preventing that burnout.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just like you talking about that, like in my culture too, is it's like the idea that you could always be doing something, that there's no reason for you to just sit there and do nothing. Like
Yeah.
there is always something to do. And if you're not, as if like if you're not doing something and being productive, then you're lazy, then you're useless. It is just like bad, right? And
Yes.
that's why I feel like for us, it's really hard when we do the unlearning and come to terms that rest is necessary. Rest is strategic. Rest helps me to recharge. It helps me to have an opportunity to reflect and make decisions that are aligned and that are going to be helpful for me instead of just doing and reacting. But in the unlearning, it's still hard. Like sometimes I catch myself, I'm not doing anything. And, maybe I'm like, oh, I could be doing this or I could be doing that. But I'm like, no, like this is necessary. This is needed because this is going to help me show up better in my career, show up better in my business, show up better in my life, and just be a better version of myself because I took the time to rest or to just like do nothing.
And I love that you say that you thought about it and you're like, no, because the most important thing is positive self-talk. Because that same statements that we got from our parents or even our aunts and uncles, any family members, these beliefs were all from someone else. So we have to rewire the brain by positive self-talk and talking to
Hmm.
ourselves, talking good to ourselves, because the things that we say to ourselves, we believe.
Yes. Yeah. And that's like something I learned too with like diving more into therapy, diving more into like just our human psychology and our subconscious and how our brain works and the different parts of our brain, right? And what you tell yourself, your brain actually believes, how your brain doesn't understand like don't, right? So it just whatever follows up, it will do. So like if you're like, don't be dumb or don't something like that. It's just like, oh, you're dumb. Or if you tell yourself like something like that, it's like, well, you said that I am this, so I must be. So it like truly believes. So that's where we can flip the switch and instead, like you said, the positive self talk. And it might seem silly sometimes. And people who are new to like say affirmations might be like, well, I don't believe it. It is because your subconscious has been hearing so much negative or limiting beliefs that it's going to take time. But the more you tell yourself those positive reinforcements or positive affirmations, the more your brain is going to believe it as true. So that's like something that's pretty mind blowing that whatever you tell yourself, your brain is going to take it as this is a fact, this is true. So, like, it's really shows you that you have to be really intentional about the words that you use and what you tell yourself, or even what you say to people, because your brain is going to believe what you say.
Yes, and remember too, our brains are designed to protect us.
Hmm.
So our what our brains do, if something, even if something is dangerous for us, our brain would tell us it's safe because it's familiar. And then something that is new to us, our brain could tell us it's dangerous because it's unfamiliar.
Hmm.
So
Like, it's
now
scary, right?
it's
Anything new is
scary.
scary. Yeah.
Yes. So that is why not only positive talk is important for us, but reconnecting with our bodies is also important because our body gives us that warning signs and sends us that signals to our brains. So we're going to get the signal from our body first.
Hmm.
Imagine us high achieving women, we're overworking ourselves and our body is giving us a signal of being fatigued. Like for me, when I am stressed, I will either bite my cheeks, I'll be like all day biting, and I have to tell myself, like, oh, wait, I wouldn't even know that I'm tired. It wouldn't even click. Or I would clench my jaws like a lot during the day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stressed. I'm doing too much. Those are my body signals to let me know that it's time for me to rest.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like a concept too, is that, a lot of us like overlook those things. Like you said, those are little things. Like your body is always going to tell you when, it's going to like ring an alarm, right? Or, well, actually before it rings the alarm, because I think the alarm is like, okay, now, like,
Yes,
listen, this is terrible. We got to stop, right? So it's those little cues, right? And when you stop listening to that and you're working through, like overworking through all that, like still going through despite the little hint is telling you, then that's where it's like, okay, I think I need to, give you a bigger, like a louder alarm for you to listen. And that's when we can have either migraines, or it could be like actual like chronic pain because you just
yes.
overlooked all those like signals so many times. And that's where like you don't want to get to a point where that's what happens, because sometimes a lot of damage has happened to you and then now you have to like recover, and that's something that could have been preventable had you just listened to the cues.
Exactly. And those are our trigger warning signs for our
Mhm.
trauma. So now we have two types of trauma. We have big T trauma and little t trauma. So when it comes to big T trauma, that trauma is non-life, that is actually, sorry, life-threatening trauma. For example, like natural disasters, sexual abuse. And then little t trauma is our non-life-threatening trauma that affects us every day, and which is like microaggression, any bullying we get from work.
Mhm.
And that turns, that big T trauma can turn into little t trauma when, for example, a person who's been dealing with sexual abuse,
Mhm.
and from, and that turns into little t trauma when that person is now exhibiting self doubt
Mhm.
and low self esteem. In the workforce, they're not able to speak up for themselves. Also, feeling undervalued, overworking to prove
Mhm.
yourself, that anxious attachment to wanting to prove themselves. And I've seen also in my therapy rooms that a person dealing with sexual trauma, reconnecting them to the body, they realize that their warning sign to let them know when something is not right, they would get that warning sign in their pelvic area.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's pretty crazy how that works because like you were talking about the big T and little T, and sometimes somebody might be like, well, I don't have big T trauma, so I don't have trauma. But then you also talked about little T trauma and like it could be from chronic workplace stress or being the only person of color in the room or microaggressions or from
Yes.
constantly trying to prove themselves that, causes stress, it causes burnout. And it all of that is because of maybe little t trauma. So that unprocessed trauma is going to show up in it's going to show up in their body, but it's also going to show up in like their actions and how they're going to react to things instead of like responding. They're just reacting to things because they're triggered. So the trauma is going to cause them to be triggered. And then that's going to determine like what do they do. And I love how you pointed out to like some of those signs because maybe somebody, is dealing with that and they just didn't think that, oh, I'm feeling this because I'm triggered because it's trauma or like this pain that I'm having. I know for a lot of different people, burnout can manifest in different ways, right? It could be like back problems, it could be headaches. If you have trauma, like childhood trauma, whether it is sexual abuse trauma or whether it's like abandonment, like all of those can manifest in different ways. And then you're holding it in the body. And I know one of the things that I've heard before, because, we understand that the body keeps the score, right? And that for so many women, like you could be holding trauma in different place in your body. And like you said, depending on like where it originated from, right? So like what are some areas that you've seen of like besides you were talking about the pelvics, but like what are some areas you've seen where maybe some of the pain or knots or things a person may be experiencing and now they can be like, oh wow, like now I know that I have that, upper shoulder knots because of this, or like it's not just always like your physical things that you're doing, like sitting too much, like maybe is because that's where you hold stress, right? So what are some signs or ways that people can find what they're holding in their body and that's why they have that tension or pain?
Well, another place would be the gut area. So if you find that you having digestive issues, most likely linked to anxiety.
Mm,
So that's another area. Anxiety, a lot of self doubt holds there, self esteem, and the same in the pelvic area. Pelvic area holds a lot of trauma, PTSD. Let's see, if you're feeling like your legs are hurting, you realize that you probably need to ground yourself. Time to
mhm.
relax, lower back pain. And those are like general things that I've seen, but everyone is different. So that's why it's important to, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling sad, anxious, any emotion, it's important to stop, take note, and say, what am I feeling right now? Where in my body am I feeling this? What triggered this emotion? Try to trace your steps back and see what it is that triggered it and why it made you feel that way. It could be something that became from big T trauma
Mhm.
from childhood, or little T trauma that happened over time in childhood or in the workplace.
First of all, the self awareness is helping you see, okay, where is that coming from? What was I doing? Like, what maybe triggered it? And that can help you identify like the root cause of that pain or that root cause of what it is. So now in talking about like, okay, so we know that trauma or like unprocessed trauma is stored in the body. So, a lot of clients like seek talk therapy and not everybody has the privilege of working with a somatic therapist, but so they're like reading the books and doing mindset stuff, but they're still like, I don't know how to turn off my body or turn it off, like I don't know how to get rid of this unprocessed stress or unprocessed trauma. What is the best approach, especially someone that's really new to this, of how they can start to connecting with their bodies and understand, and like what are some small things that they can do to start getting to know and identifying, like I know you said like trying to like trace back, but like what are some other ways that they can start reconnecting with the body and understanding like what are those sensations telling them?
So it's the body scan, just being able to again monitor what it is their body telling them in the moment of getting upset. Did your hands were your hands sweaty? Were your ears hot? Or feeling anxious? Were your stomach was your stomach feeling weird? Or was there pain in your lower back? Another thing that I like to tell my clients when practicing being connected to the body and also practicing stillness, a lot of my clients say, "Oh, I don't even know how to meditate. I can't." Yeah, they like
Yeah.
my brain is running a
It goes
mile. And
everywhere. Yeah.
yes, so think of us who do not know how to slow down. Meditation is just focused thinking. No one says that you have to absolutely not think of anything. There could be a point where you not think of anything at the time, but it's just focused thinking. So to reconnect yourself back to the body, think about when you're washing dishes, you don't realize you're meditating. You do not
Mhm.
realize you're meditating because you're washing dishes and one thought is coming one at a time. You're able to think clearly. That is all. You're meditating when you're in the shower. It's called
Mhm.
movement meditation. You're able to process thoughts throughout the day. You're meditating when you're going for a walk. It's those little things like that.
Of like
So in order
mindfulness,
to reach,
right?
yes, exactly. So I want the listeners and clients to realize that mindfulness is very helpful. You can do it every day. You're doing it every day and you don't even realize it. So this time being intentional is by this time you can be intentional by actually knowing that you're doing it.
Yes, yes. So, in like talking about that in meditation, I think that that is like a really great point that, you're doing it in so many different ways that you don't realize that that is meditation and being intentional about your thoughts. And like you said, it's okay for you not like you don't have to empty your mind. I know for me, it was hard in the beginning when I started meditating because the same way like my mind is racing, million miles an hour and I'm like, "Okay, I'm not doing this right." But one thing that helped me is focusing on my breath because it, like, forces me to be thinking of something else. So once I'm, like,
Yes.
focusing on, like, my breathing pattern, then it helped me to, like, calm down a little bit. But also, like, guided meditations, at least for me, they're amazing. They, like, really help me to connect. And like you said, even, like, the doing meditations where it guides you to, like, a body scan and, like, you thinking about those specific things in your body. So if it tells you to think about your feet, then and you're thinking about your feet, then all that like kind of forces you to like focus on a specific thing and block out everything else. And it helps you like, get in that state of like meditative state of just like the mindfulness and everything. Connecting the meditation like as a practice and how it helps with like nervous system regulation. So I would love
Yes.
to talk about nervous system regulation because I feel like a lot of women of color feel stuck, like ambitious women, right? We always get to a point where we hit a wall because, like we said before, you are doing things that you were taught to. This is what I need to do to succeed. I need to work harder. I need to prove myself. I need to be 100% in and committed and show everything. And then you get a point that you hit a wall. You feel stuck. Either you are feeling like you're overworked and undervalued in the place, or you feel stuck like I've outgrown this place, but I don't want to apply to a new place because I am already stressed out with this. And what if that's like a different kind of level of stress and challenge that I can't deal with right now, or just like different reasons of feeling stuck, right? And I feel like stuckness sometimes it just means that you don't know what you want or where to go next. This, leads to them pushing through that discomfort, pushing through the burnout. And because you're conditioned to be go, go, go. So your nervous system is always stuck in that survival mode or that fight, flight, freeze. And yeah, so I would love for you to like, talk about why nervous system regulation is so important, especially for women who are building careers, trying to set boundaries, trying to grow. And like what happens when our nervous system is dysregulated and how can we get it back to be regulated?
Okay. So it is important for us to regulate our nervous system. because if we don't, we are irritable, burnout, we will not be able to function. We lose creativity. We are running on zero. We are energy like a battery. And if we do not charge ourselves, we are dead. So think of
Mhm.
us like a battery. And regulating our nervous system is building up that armor. It's charging us. And another reason why it's very much important because it builds confidence. The reason why it builds confidence because some people don't realize why they feel confident and feel recharged and energized. It's because you tapped into your shadow self. So when we meditate, we tap into our subconscious, which is our shadow self. I like to tell my clients when you're in therapy with me, I'm already telling you what you know about yourself. I'm just reminding you. We actually know the answer. So you were saying that, our brain is running a mile a minute
Mhm.
and then that we're confused about what is going on and then we continue to push through. And that's because we didn't tap into ourselves. Our body already told us we're exhausted. Now, when we tap into our shadow self, what we really want to know is why we're exhausted. We want to know
Mm.
where it came from. Why are we pushing through? During meditation during some meditation, somatic practices, and breath work, you tap into that shadow thinking and you start to realize and accept and tell yourself, oh my gosh, I have low self esteem. You have to accept it to be able to rebuild it. Like, oh my gosh, I believe the thing that my mother was telling me. I believe that what my dad said. Or when someone at work tells me good job, that's amazing to me. And in order to be a successful entrepreneur or any achieving woman in a supervisorial director position, you have to want to create the room wanting to be yourself, not create the room trying to be like everybody else and to prove that you can be in everybody else's room by being like them.
That is what I've seen, that it is the key to really owning who you are and the key to the growth, the sustainable growth. And when I mean sustainable growth, this is the growth that you are growing in your career because you're leveraging your strengths and you're owning who you are. So the whole like be yourself and be authentic, it really what it requires is for you to like question like, was I believing, what I was told about me? Did I believe that story? And then if that belief doesn't serve you, it's like, okay, well, what is a belief that I want to believe so that I believe in myself, right? You were talking about the self confidence and like low self esteem. And that is because you believed the things that were told to you, or you believed the things that you told yourself. So now you're not showing up as yourself. You're showing up as the low self esteem person who believed that. But if you really truly believed in your self worth and that you are worthy, if you believe that you know what you need to know, because what you were talking about, your subconscious, and when you meditate, that is when you can hear yourself or your intuition, and that you actually have the answers. Like when you said in therapy, you're telling them what they already know. And sometimes it's like reminders, right? And we maybe needed to hear it again, but is something that internally you already knew. So when you are able to listen to your intuition and listen to yourself and know that you know the answer, and then you start leveraging your strengths. You're like, I'm good at this, and this is what comes natural to me, instead of trying to be like the other person or trying to be, like you said, what needs to be in the room. When you are yourself and you trust in yourself and you use that as your competitive edge, because nobody can be you. And if you actually like, this is what I'm good at and this is where I shine, I'm going to leverage that and focus on putting my energy on that instead of trying to be like the other leader, because that's their strength. And whatever that is, whether, it's they're the analytical one or they're the public speaker or whatever, if you are trying to be like someone else, you're not going to shine. You're not going to grow sustainably because you're trying to prove something that you're not. And we all have different gifts and different ways that we can be leaders and different ways that we can grow. And it is when we trust in ourselves and trust that our gifts, are what's going to help us move forward. That's where you grow sustainably because you're not trying to prove, you are just being you and you are trusting you and you trust in your choices, you trust in your moves, you trust in your abilities. So you're not like second guessing yourself. You're not asking, three people to validate what you already thought was the right answer, the right next step. And that is what helps you, right? But I want to connect the dots for people like you can do the mindset work, but how important it is to connect it with the nervous system regulation because together that's where you embody it, right? Where it is who you are, where it is how you walk and how you show up because you have a regulated nervous system. And how, when we have a dysregulated nervous system, that leads us to take decisions that it's not um, going to be the decisions that a person would take if they own who they were and believe that they were capable or believe that they were the leaders that they are.
So the way I connect it all together, mind, body, and spirit, is, of course, using the chakra system. That's how I do it in my practices. So when someone is telling me they have anxiety and they having back pain, I'm looking like, okay, you have the issue with your solar plexus. So what I do is I play that bow. We go in a meditation and I start playing the solar plexus and as the solar plexus bowl because certain sound waves help regulate the nervous system. And yeah, and then with me being that therapist, it brings up certain memories because, of course, you're tapping in to the subconscious, and then that's how we talk about it.
So I love you mentioned the sound bath and the
Mhm.
bowls and the solar plexus. So for people that are like, what is that? I don't know what that is. Like, can you give like kind of like a high level summary of like what are the solar plexus and why would it be important for you to like incorporate somatic work into it? And then how do these like sound waves like help to
But like to
support
regulate,
that area, to
yeah,
regulate that? Yeah.
to that area. So there are seven chakras, and each are associated with parts of your body, and each are also associated with different parts of diagnosis as well based on studies. And what it is that each bowl is a specific sound waves that helps slow down, that calms you down, brings you from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system, and brings you to safe mode. You went from flight or flight to feeling calm, relaxed, and safe. And it slows down those brain waves where I was saying that you are thinking one thought at a time. So
Hmm.
I'm going back to when you're washing dishes or even in the shower, you don't realize you're relaxed and you're thinking one thought at a time. This is the same thing, except it slows it down even better and brings you into stillness.
I love that. And, little surprise, guys, we will have a little taste of what the sound bath is. But before we go into that, like, first of all, thank you so much, Sheena, because this conversation was so needed. I feel like it really helps understand how trauma is not just the big stuff, but little things in our lives and how it impacts our body and impacts our career, our self worth, and our ability to rest. So before we transition, because we're going to have a little taste of this through breathwork and sound bath, I do want to ask you one final question, or maybe two. But one, like, what's one thing that listeners could take away from this conversation today, especially the women who are realizing that they're carrying unprocessed trauma and they don't know where to start?
Okay. Um, I want to first tell the women that first, you are valued and everything you do just by being still, and that you were born leaders. That's what I want to tell you. You were born leaders. Ever since we were kids, we were already positioned in leadership roles, and we don't know it, unfortunately, but you were born leaders, and it's all just for you to believe in yourself.
I love that. That's so perfect. And tell us, like, how can people work with you or how can they find you and be able to learn more about somatic therapy?
Okay, so my website is valorouswellness.com. You can find me on Instagram at valorouswellness, and my personal Instagram, Living Life with She, for tips and tricks.
I love that. And do you only work with people because you are in Florida?
South Florida for traditional talk therapy and holistic modalities. You can book on my website for anyone who's in South Florida. For the holistic services only, I can service the whole United States. And I work
Perfect.
with women, adult women.
Perfect. No, I love that. I wanted to make sure to because I know with like therapy, you're
Yes.
just like limited to the people in the state, right? But I'm excited that you get to do the other holistic therapy or not non-therapy work with everyone else. All right, perfect. So we're gonna close this episode with something special, and Sheena's gonna guide us through some um breath work, sound bath meditation experience for a few minutes. If you're listening while you're driving or doing something else that requires your attention, please bookmark this so that you can come back when you have an opportunity to be still. But if you're able to, sit and listen to this now, I would love for you to find a comfortable place to sit or lie down and close your eyes if that feels safe and just let yourself receive. Sheena, take it away.
Okay, so as Jessica said, we invite you to lay down or take a seat somewhere if that feels safe for you. I would like for you guys to close your eyes or keep a low gaze at your nose if that feels comfortable. We're going to begin with 3 cleansing breath, breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth. And I'm going to cue you in. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. One more time. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Continue on with your natural breathing pattern. I would like for you to imagine that you are sitting down or laying down on a bed of grass. You are one and connected with the earth. You are now safe. Everything you heard in this podcast today, I want you to take in and let go of any limiting beliefs. Let go of anything that is no longer serving you. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your hands, open your eyes, look at the room around you, and pick a color and point it out. And remind yourself that you are still worthy, even in stillness. Ashe.
I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you for reminding, everyone that even when you're still, even when you're not doing something, you're still worthy and you are still valuable. So thank you so much. And thank you for this.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you got exactly what you needed from this episode and that at least one thing clicked. One shift, one conversation, one thing you could actually try this week. And if you're listening and thinking, okay, but how do I apply this to my situation? That's where I come in. I work one-on-one with ambitious women of color who want to grow in their career, get promoted, negotiate more money, or make the next move without burning themselves out or losing their peace. We get clear on the strategy, work through what's really getting in the way, and build a success that actually fits your life. If this episode resonated and you want support, you can find me at jessicalynn-wellness.com or DM me on Instagram at jessicalynn-wellness. We'll chat about how I can help you thrive in your career and in your whole life. And if you know another ambitious woman of color who needs the conversation, share this episode with her. If you loved this episode or the podcast, leaving a quick rating or review helps more women find this space, and I appreciate it more than you know. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. You don't have to choose between the career and the life. You get to have both, and we're building that together. I'll see you next week. Vámonos.